In this Diablo 2 Resurrected Necromancer Build Guide, we're going to be covering the Bone Acolyte Necromancer. This is a beginner build that will comfortably get you through normal, which is the first difficulty of Diablo 2 Resurrected. If you're looking for a beginner Necromancer build and aren't sure where to begin, then this guide is for you. The Bone Acolyte Necromancer uses a combination of bone spells, summons, and curses to destroy its enemies. You'll be using Bone Spear as your main way to deal damage, and the Iron Maiden curse combined with Clay Golem to deal with bosses and melee enemies. This Necromancer build is very safe to play and will allow you to easily clear all normal difficulty bosses without many issues, making it a perfect starter build for Diablo 2 Resurrected newcomers. It's important to note that while very powerful during the beginning of the game, this build will only remain viable through the first difficulty, Normal, and up to around level 40. You can still run through Nightmare difficulty if you insist, but I wouldn't recommend it as you'll find much better options at that point in the game. If you are a new player, I strongly recommend you save the respec you get from completing the first mission, Den of Evil. If you do, you'll be able to talk to Akara and respec your character into a different build once you reach Nightmare difficulty. Most builds in Diablo 2 Resurrected have a stat distribution that focuses on assigning enough points into strength to meet equipment requirements, enough dexterity to reach max block chance, and then assigning everything else into vitality to gain as much life as possible. And while this is true for most builds, it can be confusing to decide when you should assign these attribute points. Strength is a requirement for most equipment pieces of the game. During your first playthrough, you want to have enough points to slot the best equipment for each act. This is 35 strength in Act 1, 45 strength in Act 2, and 60 strength in Acts 3 to 5. From here, you should only assign points into strength if you find an item that is worth the investment. If not, just assign the points into vitality instead. For most builds, dexterity is important to increase block chance when using a shield. Since block chance is not that important at the beginning of the game, you won't be assigning any points here. All remaining points should be spent in vitality. Increasing vitality will greatly increase your health pool, which is essential to stay alive against large groups of enemies. Vitality also increases your stamina, allowing you to run much further without needing to rest. This build uses a lot of mana, so we'll be spending 10 points in energy to make sure that we can endure long fights. The Bone Acolyte mainly focuses on the Poison and Bone tree, but you'll also be spending some points in the Summon and Curses trees. You'll use the following skills when playing the Diablo 2 Resurrected Necromancer build. When cast, the Teeth spell summons a barrage of projectiles that move forward, dealing damage when they come in contact with enemies. The number of projectiles increases with each level, but only one projectile can deal damage to each individual target each cast. For this reason, this spell works great against multiple enemies, but can't be used as a point-blank shotgun. Teeth is a synergy to Bone Spear, providing it plus 7% damage for each point you assign into it. When cast, Bone Armor creates an orbiting shield of bone that absorbs melee damage. This skill is very useful throughout the entire game, but specifically during normal difficulty as it mitigates most of the damage, allowing you to survive most melee hits without issues. Bone Armor needs to be periodically cast to remain effective, so make sure to recast it each time you end a fight. Bone Armor grants more hit points from synergies than it does from assigning points into it, so you'll only want to spend 1 point here and then level up Bone Wall to further increase its efficiency. Clay Golem will be your meat shield on the battlefield. Though you can only have one out at a time, you can cast the Clay Golem as many times as you want, allowing you to maintain a near 100% uptime even if it dies, since you can just recast it. The Iron Maiden curse works on both you and your minions, and this can be used to abuse most boss fights. Simply cast Iron Maiden on the boss and keep spawning the Clay Golem as soon as it dies. Bosses deal a lot of damage, so they'll kill themselves very quickly. The Amplified Damage curse increases melee damage taken by enemies by 100%, but won't affect magical damage, so it's not that useful for this build. It is a prerequisite for Iron Maiden, so we'll assign 1 point here. The Iron Maiden curse makes melee enemies take damage each time they hit you or one of your minions. The amount of damage is greatly increased, absolutely destroying most enemies and bosses through normal difficulty. This curse won't work on ranged enemies, so you'll have to deal with those with either Teeth or Bone Spear. It's also important to note that Iron Maiden is only useful during normal difficulty, and the damage will be greatly reduced as soon as you reach Nightmare due to increased enemy health. The Bone Wall spell summons a bone structure at the desired location. The structure stops enemies from crossing and will block ranged attacks. Your Bone Spear will be able to attack through the wall though, allowing you to trap enemies and kill them from outside the wall. Bone Wall is a great support spell, but it also provides synergies for Bone Armor and Bone Spear, allowing you to increase both your defense and attack for each point you assign here. Once unlocked, Bone Spear will be your main way of dealing damage to enemies. When cast, this spell creates a projectile that pierces through enemies, dealing full damage to all enemies hit. As previously mentioned, this spell will pierce through bone walls, so if you want to play really safe, just spawn a couple of walls and then attack from behind them. For skill distribution, you want to first focus on Teeth, then unlock Clay Golem and Curses, and finally focus on Bone Spear as soon as you've unlocked it. The idea here is that you use Teeth until you can unlock Bone Spear and then swap to that. The Clay Golem will be your meat shield, and you'll use Iron Maiden to deal with melee enemies. Runes are a special type of socketed item that will not only provide unique properties, but they can also be combined with other runes to create what's called a rune word. Rune words can be formed by inserting runes in a specific order inside certain types of equipment. The item must be normal rarity, able to support the rune word, and needs to have the same amount of sockets as runes are required. Note that some magical items have sockets on them, but even if you put the runes in the right order, the rune word will not be created, and you'll essentially lose your runes, so be sure to use normal rarity items only. While rune words are often referred to as endgame equipment, some of them can be crafted very early into Diablo 2 Resurrected and should not be so hard to come by. If you're lacking a base, you can check with the merchants as they often sell socketed items, but make sure they are normal in rarity. Rune words are the most reliable way to gear up your character while you advance through the game, so I strongly suggest that you take a look at the complete list on our wiki and periodically check the runes that you have and the rune words that you can craft. I've added a link in the description for ease of use. Make sure you bookmark that page as you are referring to it quite often. Runes can be farmed by doing Countess runs. The Countess is a super unique monster that can be found inside the Forgotten Tower in Act 1. Each time you kill her, she will always drop between 1 and 3 runes, and their level will depend on the difficulty setting. Elemental resistances are key when trying to survive in Diablo 2 Resurrected. Most enemies deal elemental damage, and having high resistances will mitigate a great percentage of this damage. For this reason, I strongly recommend that you focus on equipment pieces that provide plus resistances during the normal difficulty of the game. You can check your current resistances by opening the stat menu and looking at the bottom of the menu. Resistances cap at plus 75%, and ideally you'll want to max all of them when you're reaching the end of normal. Make sure to periodically check your equipment to balance them out and get as high as possible. Since loot is random, you won't have control over the equipment that you get during early and even mid-stage gameplay other than creating rune words. Having said that, there are some general guidelines on the stats that you should be looking for on your items to make sure that your character scales up with increasing difficulty. For helmets, you want to be on the lookout for the Nadir rune word, which is made up of Neph and Tyr runes and can be equipped at level 13. This helmet provides a good amount of defense as well as plus 5 strength, allowing you to save some stats during early stages. The plus 2 mana per kill is also a great way to keep our mana reserves between fights. The Lore rune word, made up of Ort and Soul runes, is equipable at level 27. If you happen to come across a Soul rune, then you can use it to craft this helmet, which provides plus 1 to all skills as well as plus 30% lightning resistance. When it comes to weapons, wands are the best way to increase our damage early on. You can buy them from merchants like Akara in the Rogue encampment. For skills, you want to look for plus Teeth at first, and then transition into plus Bone Spear once you reach level 18. You can also look for other stats such as faster cast rate or any other skill mentioned in this build. Besides wands, you want to be on the lookout for the Spirit rune word, which can be crafted with Tal, Thol, Ort, and Am runes and is equipable at level 25. This rune word can be crafted on both weapons and shields. It increases both your damage thanks to its plus 2 to all skills and 25 to 35% faster cast rate, as well as increasing your defense thanks to faster hit recovery, vitality, and life stolen per hit. Finding a 4-socketed weapon can be a little tricky, but stay on the lookout for crystal swords, longswords, and broadswords. If you happen to play the secret cow level, if you find any unsocketed of these types of weapons, you can get a guaranteed 4 sockets from Larzuk by completing the Siege on Harrowgath quest. Also be on the lookout for the White rune word, which is made up of Dol and Eo runes and can be equipped at level 35. While acquiring the runes might be a little difficult even at the start of Nightmare, this is by far the best weapon for this build. This wand provides plus 3 to all bone spells, plus 3 to bone armor, and plus 2 to bone spear, greatly increasing all our main skills. In addition, it provides plus 20% faster cast rate and some vitality, which can come very handy as well. A very important note here is that you can craft the White rune word on wands of normal rarity that already have plus skills. So if, for example, you can craft it on a wand that already has plus 2 to bone spear, you'll end up with plus 4 to bone spear. The first shield you want to be on the lookout for is Ancient's Pledge, which is a rune word made up of Ral, Ort, and Tal runes and is equipable at level 21. This shield provides a huge boost to resistances. If you can't find an Ort rune, you can make one by combining 3 Ral runes inside the Herodric Cube. Another shield is the Spirit rune word made up of Tal, Thol, Ort, and Am runes and is equipable at level 25. If you find the runes and a 4-slot shield, then Spirit is a great option as well. This shield provides +2 to all skills and +25 to 35% faster cast rate, greatly increasing your damage, and provides many defensive stats such as elemental resistances, faster hit recovery, and vitality. For armor, you want to be on the lookout for the Stealth rune word made up of the Tal and Eth runes, which is equipable at level 17. This is by far the best armor that you can get early on. The 25% faster cast rate is nice, while the poison resistance and faster hit recovery, which allows you to recover control of your character sooner after each hit, provides us with more survivability. The faster hit recovery is very important as it usually helps you avoid stun locks when surrounded by enemies. When it comes to gloves, you want to focus on defensive stats such as life and resistances. Make sure to swap your belt as soon as you reach Act 2 for the maximum amount of potions. Regarding stats, you want to focus on life and resistances. Some merchants might offer magical belts with a lot of life on them, which is a great option. You'll want to search for faster run-walk speed on your boots as well as resistances and life. Run-walk speed is important to quickly navigate through the map, so make sure you get it. You'll want to search for rings that have life and resistances as well as faster cast rate. Similar to rings, you'll want to find an amulet that provides life and resistances. An amulet that provides plus bone skills can also be great for this build. You'll find many charms as you advance through the game. While having these in your inventory is great, they can easily occupy a lot of space, limiting the amount of loot you can pick up. Try to focus on plus life, plus resistances, and plus magic find, as these are the more important ones for your build. Act 2 Mercenaries are the best choice for all builds due to their paladin auras and the ability to equip polearm weapons. Being able to use polearms is very important because many powerful runewords can be created on them, providing various buffs or debuffing enemies. You can recruit this mercenary from Grease and Loot Golem. When it comes to selecting an aura, you'll want to select the Prayer Mercenary found on normal difficulty. The Prayer aura provides heal regeneration, allowing you to survive longer without using potions. Once you reach Nightmare difficulty, you can hire a Holy Freeze aura mercenary, which slows the enemies around you, providing great crowd control. You won't have a lot of spare equipment during the beginning of Diablo 2 Resurrected, but you can equip him with any extra equipment you have or buy him a polearm from a merchant. If you happen to spare some runes, make sure to craft an Insight runeword on a polearm, as this weapon will greatly increase your mercenary's combat capabilities and improve your mana regeneration. Final tips. Doing a couple of Countess runs will give you a lot of runes that will not only be useful for this build, but for any other character that you might make. Make sure to save all runes that you find inside your stash. If you're having trouble finding an item to socket your runewords into, make sure to periodically check on merchants, as they usually have good bases. You can assign your Bone Spear and Teeth attacks to the normal attack slot, allowing you to only swap between your complementary skills. You can attack from your current position by holding Shift on PC. If you're using controller, this will not be an issue for you. If you're struggling with any area, just start spamming the Bone Wall spell and create at least 6 or 7 walls. This will allow you to remain safe while you defeat the enemies. Do not forget to periodically cast Bone Armor. This skill is very useful to absorb melee damage and scales very well through the whole game. If you happen to find a good unique or set item that you like, don't hesitate to swap it with your current gear. I excluded all unique and set items for this guide because there's no reliable way of acquiring them early on. This build is somewhat mana hungry, so I personally like to run my belt with 1 healing potion column and 3 mana potion columns, but you can also add antidote potions or thawing potions. Using these potions will not only cure their respective status effect, but also provide plus 50 resistance to their corresponding elemental resistance. Once you equip an Insight runeword on your mercenary, he will be your main way to recover mana, so make sure to keep him alive by using potions on him. To do this, press and hold Shift and then right-click on the potion you wish to use. If you're playing on controller, hold down the left trigger and press the appropriate button on the D-pad. Stay tuned for more Diablo 2 guides, and be sure to check out the Diablo 2 Resurrected wiki for more information about the game. So what did you guys think of this build guide? What class are you playing? Let us know in the comments below.